This lesson is about finding the equation of a line, another one of my favorite topics. We have to remember the slope-intercept form of a line, y equals mx plus b. That is where you're going to start every problem like this. And it's also how it's going to end unless the problem specifically asks you to put it in general form, which they usually don't. So every problem, start by writing down y equals mx plus b. And what are the two parts of a line that we need to know? The m, which is the slope, and the b, which is the y-intercept. So if we can find those two numbers, then we have the equation of the line. Depending on the problem, you're given different pieces of information. Sometimes the problem's really easy, and other times you need to do a little bit more work. The easiest case is where you're simply given m and b. For example, if they told me that m is 2 and b is 7, I would just plug in 2 for m and 7 for b, and bam, there's the equation of that line. It's almost trivial. The next example of medium difficulty is where you're given the slope, but instead of the y-intercept, you're just given a random point on the line. One thing you have to be really careful of is don't assume that the y-coordinate of the point that you're given is the y-intercept. That would only be the case if the x-coordinate was 0. So we don't have the y-intercept that we need, but we can find it. Take your slope that you've been given and plug it in for m. Now, we want to know b. We can't solve this equation because we've got 3 unknowns, and that's a problem. But we know a y, and we know an x. So we'll just plug in the 3 for x and the 1 for y, and now we have an equation that we can solve for b. Just make sure that you get the x-coordinate in the x position and the y-coordinate in the y position. So let's go ahead and solve this. Now I have 1 equals 2/3 times 3 plus b. Oh, and look how nice it is. The x-coordinate is going to cancel out the denominator, so we don't even have to worry about fractions. So we have 1 equals 2 plus b, subtract the 2, and we get that b is -1. So take the -1, plug it in for b, and you have the answer. Y equals 2/3 x minus 1. Ta-da! The most complicated example is where you're simply given 2 points on the line. And 2 points on a line is all you need to determine the equation of the line, but we're going to have to find the slope on our own. So recall the slope formula. You just subtract the y's and subtract the x's. So in this case, I like to draw these little arrows. I do 1 minus 4 and 2 minus -3. Be sure and put in those parentheses. Make sure that you use the same point as the first number. Otherwise, you'll get the wrong sign. So we have -3 over 5, and that's our slope. So now we can insert that into y equals mx plus b. So we got y equals -3/5 x plus b. And now we just do what we did for the medium example. Choose one of our points, plug it in for x and y, and solve for b. So now we have 2 points to choose from. Typically, you want to use the point that has the least opportunity for error. If there's a point with no negatives in it and no fractions in it, I'd pick that one. So I'm going to use 2, 1. So I'm going to plug in 1 for y and 2 for x. We are going to have to work with fractions here, but that's okay. We can do it. So we get 1 equals -6/5 plus b, and now we have to add the 6/5 over. So 1 plus 6/5 equals b, and we'll take a common denominator to get that b is equal to 11/5. So I'll just plug that in for b. Y equals -3/5 x plus 11/5. And that's the equation of that line. You can do it.